In a typical cultivation story, there are clear story beats. A protagonist, often a young one, starts from the bottom. He uses his intelligence or gains a new ability or item, or regresses and uses his knowledge and growing power to quickly rise up the ranks. There are clear obstacles in his path. Jealous disciples, powerful young masters, and plotting elders often want to destroy or coerce the protagonist. But through their wits and abilities, the protagonist manages to overcome every obstacle. They will repeat the same challenges over and over again, finding a lost cultivation method and properly using it, discovering a hidden secret and becoming stronger, and using their extra abilities, perhaps a regression or some ancient master advising them to quickly rise to the top. But in Modern Patriarch, there are clear divergences. Our main character Xianxia begins his journey at the very top of the hierarchy. He has already achieved everything and overcame every obstacle thrown in his way. There are no more plotting young masters, no more jealous disciples or clear disrespect. Xianxia is at the very top of the food chain. Our story begins with him attempting an ascension. Xianxia is the patriarch of the Heavenly Sky Sect. He is nearly unrivaled in the Azlac Plains, save for his two rivals, the patriarch of the Sacred Flame Palace, Lei Wuyan, and the patriarch of the Divine Mountain Sect, Kang Long. Yet even as patriarch, he is an outsider in his own sect. The legacy family shun him, and even his own master did not think he would make it this far. No one thinks he can succeed in this ascension, and everyone has already written him off. But Xianxia almost desperately wants to prove everyone wrong, and so he attempts the ascension from a nascent soul to the rank of Soul Emperor. He burns. Blood is oozing from every pore in his body. The heavenly Tao has deemed him not worthy of ascension. The law that governs this world has deemed him weak, unfitting of the power and responsibility of a Soul Emperor. But Xianxia cannot accept this. For centuries, he has worked on his cultivation, and despite his lack of talent, spiritual roots, or bloodline, he's always forged ahead, no matter the circumstances or the forces arrayed against him. And so he shouts towards the heavens, defying their judgment. And he embraces the pain and struggle of his path, and pushes ahead with his willpower, and he ascends. Before I continue, it's important to note that Xianxia's cultivation is quite different from what we're used to seeing in a main character. Instead of one major Dao like shadow, fire, and lightning, etc., Xianxia was born without any affinity for any of these. He uses a combination of elements he understands to forge domains, to impose his will upon the world of Illyria. One such example is combining the elements of water, shadow, mist, and wind to form the domain of illusionary shadows. But this is still not unique. What makes Xianxia stand out is his esoteric Dao. Esoteric Daos are the ones that cannot be taught or passed on. They are the ones that must be experienced and fully understood by the practitioner. Xianxia is a practitioner of an esoteric Dao, the Dao of humanity. Years ago, Xianxia, after centuries of cultivation and a period of stagnation, had decided to wander around looking for things to improve his cultivation. From secret techniques to natural treasures, nothing seemed to work. But after chancing upon a mortal village and watching their struggles, he decides to integrate himself into their lives, disguising himself and helping with the harvest. Xianxia gains a new understanding of humanity. He watches mortals struggle and live very short lives, and is struck with the realization that much of their lives are pointless. A cultivator could harvest the field in mere moments, where it would take a dozen mortal men months. A cultivator could heal any ailments or injuries in hours compared to the months and years of suffering that mortals go through. So why do their lives seem much more impactful, much more joyful, and they feel truly free? From answering this question, Xianxia gains an understanding of the human Tao. It is a Tao that no one in the Azlac plane understands, and even Xianxia struggles to understand its true purpose and why it was given to him. The Tao allows him to see into the hearts of humans. It allows him to see their true intentions and allows him to impart emotions onto other people. It is not a Tao for combat. He does not throw spears of lightning or waves of shadow. He simply tries to understand why humans do what they do. Going back to the Ascension, Xianxia dreams. He dreams of another world, free of cultivators, where mortals can rise to the top, where mortals can decide their own fate. He dreams that he's an ordinary salaryman working in this world with wife and kids. And he has big ideas. But Yao Shen is a cultivator. His willpower is unmatched, and this cannot overwhelm him. He absorbs the memory into his very being, and Yao Shen comes out of the ascension changed. This is where the story really begins. Yao Shen, now with the status of a sole emperor and the strongest being in the Azlac Plains, has the power to kill all his rivals and enforce his newly found worldview. He can forcibly change the cultivation society that is in place and make it more humane and meaningful. But Yao Shen does not. The story instead focuses on Yao Shen and his ability to change people's minds. Yao Shen will not enact a bloody crusade across the Azlac Plains for the sake of his goal. Instead, he'll use diplomacy. He'll argue his case as to why the current cultivation culture is stagnating and regressing, why disciple culture is wrong, and how the legacy families wield too much power and influence, and why the mindset of a cultivator is fundamentally wrong. And he will convince people, first skeptically, then enthusiastically. This doesn't mean Yao Shen doesn't fight, but as the story goes on, the focus is on the change that he can bring into the world. And it's almost as if the heavens themselves brought him there. This brings us to Yao Shen himself. He's such a complicated character because we don't really see the before, we only see the after, when he's gained memories of the other life on Earth. We do know that his journey mirrored typical cultivation protagonists. He was a mortal that was accepted into the Heavenly Sky sect, and through his willpower he managed to rise to the top, defying everyone's expectations of him. But after 200 years of cultivation, Yao Shen is tired. He's restless. It's part of the reason he ascends to the rank of Soul Emperor. He just wants something to happen instead of wasting away. Yao Shen carries a feeling of melancholy, of reflectiveness. He just wants things to change. He doesn't want the Murim to stagnate. He doesn't want it to die. And with his new memories, reform is possible. Yao Shen's ambition transcends the modern sect, and even the Azlac Plains. This story, at least the first book, is mostly talking, and there is a lot to talk about. I don't want to sound pretentious, but if you want a book about the flaws of the cultivation genre, you'll enjoy this story. But if you're a person who enjoys reading action, don't go into this book expecting lots of fights, at least initially. Later on, lots of enemies stand in Yao Shen's path, and they will need to be eliminated. Some things you might not like in this story are the changes he makes. They're quite slow. If Yao Shen wants to make a change, there's going to be a slow and painful process of adapting it. The author Taoist Enigma doesn't gloss over the detail, but some people might find the pacing horrifically slow. And the story in general has lots of introspective. As Yao Shen spends time ruminating and talking with others, there will be vast sections of the book where no fighting happens and Yao Shen is just thinking about his old life or conversing with other sect elders. Furthermore, because Yao Shen is already at the peak and he's starting from the top down, we don't get to see what the younger cultivators and the disciples think about these changes, servants as well as maybe the viewpoint of a mortal villager. And just like a typical cultivation story, Yao Shen is a big fish in a small pool. There are cultivators that are far stronger than him, and he still has a long way to go outside the Azlac Plains, so he's not really strong in comparison to the rest of the world. Let's end with a quote from the book. On this night, let our past not be the only thing that defines us, for the river of time flows in one direction, and that is forward. The ideal past will forever remain an ideal, but the future is something we can yet shape. Let this day be a celebration, as on this day the cultivators of the Azlac Plains stand together as one, united whole.